This is Frank Rolfe. It's my pleasure to have with me today Blake Comfort. He's in California, but he owns a number of parks, 25 parks in both Arizona and Texas. He's been in the business for about 16 years. And we thought it would be exciting to learn more about him and what he's been doing with mobile home parks. It's, of course, rarefied air to meet people who own the things. So it's always good for owners to share kind of the communal fellowship of park ownership. So we all can learn from each other and understand what's going on. So Blake, can you hear us okay?
I got you loud and clear. Thanks for having me.
Perfect. Well, Blake, we're glad to have you. So tell me first, what gave you the idea to ever buy a mobile home park? It's obviously a very strange notion that no one grows up with the desire, like I want to be a fireman, I want to be a policeman. No one has ever said I want to be a trailer park owner. So what gave you that initial light bulb going off about buying a mobile home park?
So when I was 17, 18 years old, we went to one of those Rich Dad educational series seminars where they kind of broad stroke lay out a bunch of different platforms and assets and how to do it. And we had no money, to really speak of. So it was kind of that 0%, no down, no money down kind of thing. And they touched on manufactured housing or trailer parks, mobile home parks as an asset class. And my dad, who was having to reimagine his career in that moment, he was a general contractor for years. We both kind of looked at each other and a light bulb went off that we thought we could scale that better than and more quickly without having to hire a big team. And the price per unit back then was way more approachable. And so we, little by little, we just fell in love with the industry.
Okay, and you have so many parks. We can't really break it down park by park because there's too many of them. So we'll break the park discussion into kind of a general. If you took all of them together, or maybe give us just kind of what averages. So of the 25 parks you own so far, let's first talk about where you found them. What percent of those came from brokers? What percent direct mail, cold calling, online? Give us just a quickie generalization of that. Where do you think most of them came from?
95% were brokers with a deal, not all listed, but probably 80% were listed. And, they get sent out to the handful, maybe 10, 20. I don't think they were huge, hundreds of groups that saw them, but definitely brokers involved. And then we did a bunch of stuff. I, in the day, talked to your guys' acquisitions lead, Perry, and got some pointers on that long-term, endeavor of off market. We did steal, one deal at like 50% off. It had some hair on it, so we fixed it up over 18 months and basically sold it for double.
Gotcha.
But that was like the only one that we really got as a great deal off market. The rest, majority is from brokers.
Okay. And again, in all generality, the majority of your banking has been what? Is it seller financed? Is it small town bank, conduit bank, Fannie, Freddie? Just on average, what would you think?
Yep. So in the early days, banks, regional banks, smaller banks that were within 5 miles, you used to talk about that. You got to go to the bank down the street. We did that because it was like when we first started buying parks, 2009 was when we first bought our very first asset in North Denver. That was all that you could get. And then smaller deals, we started at like a $600,000 or $700,000 deal. So we got bank loans. Now our entire, portfolio is Fannie or Freddie. Couple CMBS, couple bank loans, but for, by and large now I'm getting them done with Fannie and Freddie.
And let's talk about the early days, because you went to the seminar thing. You heard the idea about mobile home parks. Thought, okay, I'll dabble with that. Were you able to get some pretty hot deals in the early days as far as low down payments or a lot of turnaround meat on the bone, or how did that all work out?
I mean, cap rates back then, it was silly in hindsight, 8 plus, caps for decent quality. Our second deal was built in, it was outside of Durango, Colorado. And it was like a newer build, city services. And we got it for like a 7.5, 8 cap,
Right.
And it was one of those coupon clipper type deals, very few things to be done there. All newer inventory, nice newer streets, etc. So yeah, in hindsight, we got, in a way, there was some luck involved with how much demand shifted, into our space. And so, we just liked it because it was a good multifamily asset. And then really we got a lot of tailwinds, through that whole 10 years,
And the average park you bought, if you just were to add them all together, add all 25 together, divide by 25, what do you think your average lot count would be, for example?
So today it's
like
100.
Sub 100, 100,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah, 100. We got like
100?
2,500 units, and that's about average. We started smaller than it, obviously, and it can average kind of rose over time. First deal was 28 units, second was 37, then a 70 unit, and then several 50s and 70 units along the way. And now we're kind of, our sweet spot is that 100 unit mobile home park, in metropolitan locations like Phoenix and Dallas is our kind of main target now.
Got it. And looking back on when you began, and you started buying parks in what year, would you say?
2009.
2009. Okay. So looking at the lot rents from 2009 on average to the lot rents you have today, they've doubled pretty much,
Oh,
probably, or?
Yes. I mean, we're now pushing triple.
Pushing triple, yeah. I'm with you.
$1,000.
So you probably started off with rents are probably like 200, and now they're 6, something like that, or 250 to 750, something like that.
It was a lot of 300-ish, 350, and then now we're pushing 1,000 across most of our deals. Obviously, market specific, but yes.
Right, and let's talk. You own a Parker Parks in the Dallas area, is that correct?
We just in the last year bought 350 units, 3 deals totaling 350 units in Dallas, DFW, Dallas Fort Worth metropolitan area.
Right. Oh yeah. Right. So using Dallas as an example, because it's kind of in the middle of America, and my first park was in Dallas, right? Glenhaven is in South Dallas, not in the location people just clamor for. Okay. Yeah. That thing, when I bought it, the lot rent I think was 150. Okay, back in '96, and so let's focus for a minute just on the trajectory of rents, right? So 150 was stupid. It made no sense. He was renting homes for 300, including the house, which is just wacky. Even in '96, right? You couldn't buy anything or rent anything like that, right? So totally. Then fast forward to today in Dallas Metroplex rents, like what are you getting today roughly in Dallas? Just generally, I mean.
So Dallas is, in my opinion, now market rents within good locations, good, decent quality deals, 1,000 plus.
Right. So some people will look at that and say, yeah, and some people look at that and say, oh my gosh, that's evil landlords running amok. What's your average house in Dallas Metroplex is what today? 400,000 ish.
Oh yeah. The brand new homes all around the parks that we own now are 600,000-800,000. Down maybe starter home 400. Right. Yeah, 399 to 600.
Right. So our rents, your rent in Dallas even today at 1,000 is still dirt cheap, right? Because the apartments are probably 2,000 on average. Houses are, again, in your market 600,000-800,000, but even in not very good neighborhoods of Dallas, 450, 500, right? And that's not even anything that's nice in a not nice neighborhood.
It's correct. You have to work hard to find something around 300 grand in that metro. More of like an old.
Oh yeah, no, believe me. You'd have to be way out there in Segoville to find something probably for 250, 300 anymore. So when you're looking at rents today, when you're evaluating parks you're buying on the rents, where do you see rents ultimately going? Like, everyone has their own issue because the industry's never had we have never hit even the beginning semblance of a ceiling on rents, right? Because our stuff is so cheap. It's like the McChicken, right? McChicken was $1 on the McDonald's menu, and now it's $3 on the McDonald's menu. So it's up 300%. It's still the cheapest sandwich on the McDonald's menu. And compared to a sandwich at Arby's or something, that would be $7, right? So what are your thoughts on rent? Taking out all the political nonsense from blue states and rent
Yeah.
control advocates and all kinds of goofy morons. But in the real world of free market system where common sense prevails, where do you see rents? Like when you're buying a park at $1,000 rent, where do you think rents are going over the next 5 to 10 years, would you say?
So what we're doing now is a deep dive in multifamily rents in our given markets that we're looking at acquiring deals in. And when you get to that, call it like a 2 or 3 bedroom average, because you can't base everything off of a 1 bedroom, because a lot of our communities are 2+ bedrooms in the home stock that's there. And so we'll look at more
Right.
like a blended average of multi in the same neighborhood, and then kind of look at a little bit broader market study. And then we're now pushing to like 60% as like a quick rule of thumb. 50% used to be the old rule, where it was like, let's say it's a $2,000
Right.
average market rent for multi. So then you can quickly go, okay, 1,000 should be in the realm, Well, if you
Right.
run a clean community that has newer home stock, or you're completely, really making it a heck of a lot more livable and higher quality, just on the signage, the roads, the normal stuff, no crazy stuff. But like if there's a clubhouse, we do open it up and make it a space that's nice. If there's a pool, we'll put the newer furniture and clean it up and make it nice again. But we're spending, maybe a couple of $200-300 on clubhouses. It's not like absurd on a $10 million plus asset. We're now nudging in 60-65% of multifamily rents in a given market, and we're not having pushback. In fact, when we go in and clean up the operations and any inventory, we paint it, skirt it, make it clean. Any new inventory we bring in is obviously new, so it helps the whole look and feel of the community. We're ending up increasing the mobile home values of those communities, even driving the rents. So, and I'd say pushing rents to what is the market rent where the people will pay for it. Back to your point, something is worth what a given buyer or a resident will pay for it. That's market.
Right.
And so,
and let me ask you this: why are we relegated to being less than apartments? Let me ask you that.
So I'd say
I assume probably 80% of your customers or more probably already own their homes free and clear, right? I mean, that's kind of, in most cases, all your 80s homes are free and clear, 90s are free and clear. Only guys you got in there that are not free and clear are guys you put on 30-year mortgages, which you couldn't even do until maybe 10 years ago on new homes. So if you're living in one of Blake's parks, right? And you own your house free and clear, he's made it all nice, got the clubhouse, the entry's pretty, the whole deal. As an industry, why do we have to be less than apartments? Those apartments are skanky. They're not nice. You're stuck with your neighbors knocking on your wall. You got to use, you can't park by your door. You don't have a yard. Do you think it's fair for our industry to have to be at a deep dish discount? I mean, you're saying now you're going from 50% to 60%, but do we have to stop at 60%? I'm just playing devil's advocate.
I love it.
Thinking outside the box. I don't know anyone who likes apartments more than mobile home parks, but as an industry, we always have this inferiority complex. Like we got to be cheap, even though our product sometimes is better. We still think it has to be cheap. What are your thoughts on that?
I have so many thoughts. And so this is I'd say my internal battle with our team, but I will argue both sides of it. The key is location of the asset and that particular demand and the home stock that's there. So I'll give you an example. In Tucson, as a lesser quality, I'd say economically, the fire isn't burning as bright there as Phoenix. Tucson to Phoenix, the economic engine just isn't running to the same degree, and so we have no problem moving almost any inventory in Phoenix. But where you bump up, where we're bumping up into the 60% of multi in Tucson, we start getting homes. And you actually do have this, we have nudged up against the point where people start to move based on the fact that old home isn't worth enough for them to continue to pour money into it. And so we end up doing a program where we give them something for the title. And that's the threshold. In my opinion, that's where the threshold should be. So like if you go back up to Phoenix, I'll argue the capitalist side, it's worth what somebody will pay for it. If I'm 100% occupied, I should be pushing, on a capitalistic argument. And it's like, until you're dealing with some type of turnover, like multi, I operate some apartments too. So I have that, as another background piece of data. You would always run your apartment deal to like 95 to 97% occupancy. You'd never operate it at 100, because if you're operating at 100, you know that there's money left on the table. And so you just keep driving. And so that's why I'd say we're particularly so focused on certain markets now, is we know on one market we can drive and push and sell brand new homes at break even or a small profit. Let's call it just break even plus the team's commission to sell it. Versus in Tucson, we're probably having to, provide some subsidy to those homes brand new in order to move them at the space rent that we're trying to capture. And so we've played all sides of this. And I'd say you go into really strong, vibrant economic markets, those are going to be far superior. And I think that you could probably push, into the 70, 80%, especially with a nice quality asset, big roads, nice parking, nice clubhouse, etc.
Do you think part of the problem might also be that moms and pops never really vetted their customers? I mean, a lot of parks we buy, mom and pop, never had any application process at all. They were letting people in that should have never been in there. They were living on a $700 payment from the government, which you could not even at the old lot rent, make sense of it, right? When you add another costs onto it. But is that also the reason, perhaps in some cases, as you raise rent to still ridiculously low levels, people will blow out, is because mom and pop created a culture where people needed to be in a social program like Section 8 or something. I mean, we bought parks. We bought a park once where there was a guy living in the park in a camper shell on cinder blocks, no toilet, no bathroom, nothing. He went to McDonald's to go to the bathroom, right? Should have never been in there.
Yes.
He was paying a lot rent was like $200, but he should not have been in there. Right?
No,
and when I walked around that property, I had many people like that. I had people in travel trailers with no working bathrooms. And I was like, guys, you all got to leave. And they had a fit saying, I got nowhere to go this cheap. I'm like, you're not even in conformance with city code. Like, I can't believe you're even in here currently. But that's what mom and pops often did, right? It's like if you were breathing and had $200 cash, oh yeah, you're in. Didn't even ask, do you have a job? Have you been evicted or anything? Don't you think that also has somewhat, like when you're doing park turnarounds, that a little bit of it too?
We have a saying that and I'll give mom and pops a small pass in that ignorance is bliss, and they didn't really understand what they were doing. Then you have the other side of the coin, which we call vampires. There's people that will suck the juice and the life out of a given property and not, maintain it at a standard that's, should be held.
Yep.
And so, yes, I'd say some of the most challenging deals we ended up doing were ones where we were sort of tricked into the occupancy. And then you get in there and you start holding the line on rules and regs and rent collection timeframes and all that. And people, they're jumping like rats off of off the street. And so then you end up with all this crappy inventory. Well, then we find out the manager's slinging trailer titles to his friends for like $100.
That's correct.
And we've done it all to where it's like, good, get the hell out of here. So then we go and pursue them for the titles, and you spend all that money to get them, even just through abandonment. And so, it's an excellent point that if they wouldn't have let the home stock get so far, because they got these low lives, these people that no matter what community you're in, you wouldn't want them as a neighbor.
Right.
They're the ones that now they've created a crack house out of one of these homes that would have been a decent home. Once we get rid of them and uphold the standard, now that home's 10, 20, 30 grand with it's fixed up. And we do a ton of renovations on these old mobile homes, because in Tucson specifically, we'd rather take an old home that's structurally sound. We'll completely rewire it, replumb it, almost rebuild it. We've taken them down to the studs, and we can do that for like 30 to 40 grand max. Right. And our downtime's less. And then we can sell that home all cash for 30 to 40 grand versus now if I floor the new house, I have to get new permits. The set crews are, as you know, good set crews are hard to come by now, that can get sets done timely, get permits and all that. And then your downtime's, significantly greater than if you just, work on a home for a month or two.
Right.
And so, and you're increasing the total, I'd say the total expense load for the resident. If they have to go get a mortgage on a new $60,000, $80,000 house, you're just kind of creating an exponential growth factor on their all in. And so we really now do both. And we kind of did that reluctantly. We didn't want to have to flip, good luck finding good renovation teams to flip old 1970s, 80s vintage homes.
Yep.
They don't want to do it. And so you end up having to pay a decent price for these little contractor groups to go in and do it. But yeah, it's kind of upsetting when people get in there and then on a separate angle, we've ended up with bad notes where they were predatory notes. And as soon as we do a $50 increase after we've come in and done the initial facelift of the property, the notes all go bad.
Right.
So we've had it all.
Well, let me ask you this. I mean, obviously, if you bought 25 parks, you've done a lot of negotiating, right? So give people a tip or two on how to be a better negotiator. What are some of the Blake's secret tips for people on working with moms and pops better, getting better deals? What are you seeing out there?
So my favorite method now, versus, there's the old method where you're kind of haggling all on the front end.
Right.
I like to tie up and get something in escrow and be serious about it, and mean it. I wouldn't waste anybody's time. Go in seriously. If everything you were given was accurate, you at the moment you say, okay, hey, I'm going to take your word for it. You tie up the deal, you go to contract, but now you hit this thing with you and your contractors or team. You hit that thing so hard, and you go through every home, every park-owned home. You have in my opinion, you should have a pro plumber and a pro electrician, maybe even electrical engineer, depending, because that's where you can get big CapEx dollars, can get slamming you. And you have everyone go through it as fast and as quickly as you can in the first couple of weeks of like a 30-day due diligence. And I gather all that data and then I make a call. And a lot of the times, I'd say this is a piece that I think I do a little bit differently, is that if I take all that, there's typically a couple of outlier variables that are the worst, the meaningful dollars. And so if it's a $20,000 item, I'm going to say it's a $10 million asset, just to give perspective. If it's a $20,000 item, I'm focused on the $200,000 item. And so I'm not going to nitpick if it's 10 items and 2 of them are most of the money. I make a call and I'll say, hey, this sewer main over here has a complete, issue with it. There's a tree root, whatever. There's a blockage. There's this, there's that. The tie-ins aren't draining correctly. All the laterals. I say, would you just fix it with a reputable plumber? And most of the time, and then I'll have my team, as they're continuing to do due diligence, get the plumber's contact and kind of help facilitate, not necessarily do the work, not manage the contractor, but be present. And
Sure.
Most of the time they'll make it right. But rather than asking for the haircut, I get a complete project that I don't have to spend the money on. And I've basically just held them accountable to selling me the asset as they were originally agreed upon.
Right.
And so it's not like this slam of a discount, but now you have the good asset that you thought you were getting into originally. And I found that most of the time, my sellers are people that I'm going to do more business from. So the mom and pop realm, you could argue that you maybe should be a little tougher to try to get your basis down and buy it for a better deal. But I try to be a good steward on the buy side so that I keep a good relationship, and that leads to more deals and more activity in the future.
Let me ask you this. You mentioned a park in Colorado. I know you're in currently Arizona and Texas. Okay. Why those states? I mean, Colorado's a no-brainer because you really can't go bad in Colorado no matter what you do, right? Unless you're a crazy buyer. Everything Colorado, constantly lot rents going up, higher demand. Arizona and Texas, great states, but why did you choose that footprint? I mean, there's 50 states out there. Hawaii doesn't have any parks. Why have you put a heavy focus on Texas, Arizona?
So we operate and do everything ourselves as a team and as a dealership, you name it. We're from San Diego. So Arizona was, as we went to Colorado, we then would start to find deals in Arizona, as you can imagine, from just kind of getting into the broker network and kicking tires. So then we kind of made our way actually from Denver. We owned a deal in Brighton to Durango. Then we had our first Arizona deal, which is in Cottonwood, which is up by Sedona. And then we went down into Peoria. And once we got into Arizona, there's just so many deals. And once you're in with the brokers, like in your transacting, you tend to find and get more deals sent to you. And so we just fell in love with the simplicity of the desert. So we don't have the weather issues. Property taxes are really fair. Property insurance tends to be more in line with where it should be, even though rates have gone up lately. It's still a lot cheaper than other markets that I've looked at. Then I'd say once we got in to know the submarkets really well, we just kind of really focused there. We built a regional team. We actually, while I'm thinking about it, we purchased Moon Valley from you, I'm pretty sure. And so we, those types of deals, they just kind of came around and we got good at the operations there, doing all the inventory, the dealership license, all that stuff. And we're a smaller family company to begin with. So it was just like, what's the best logical way for us to scale? And we liked the fact that we got sharp in that given market. Whenever we kind of stepped out, we were learning lessons. When you kind of shotgun approach, there's all these unknowns and it's hard to pin down all the variables of that market when you're unfamiliar. So we always looked at a lot of mobile home parks all over the country. But as soon as I was about to like step out and make a big offer and chase a deal in a different city, I'd find another great deal in Arizona. And then I just kept the momentum.
Sure.
So, yeah, I mean, and then besides that, now Arizona is becoming like the fair-haired child with the just normal, landlord friendly stuff. If somebody doesn't pay rent, you can evict them, just normal common sense. And then now insurance battles are a big thing. Property tax battles in Texas are very real on just like trying to maintain a reasonable cost. Well, Arizona doesn't have that. Now we're having a 3 or 4 groups every year are bidding for our insurance policy in Arizona because they'd rather have that than somewhere else. So our insurance has ballooned, but now is settling. So we just, continue to really like Arizona. Then we have some new tailwinds with all the development that's going on there. Some of that onshoring and tech and things that are going on the western side and north of Phoenix. So then we're just doubling down. Then you start to get those competitive advantages where now our park down the street, like Moon Valley today is $900, and so then you're like, well, wait, if it's 900 over here, it should be at least 850 over here. And then now we're buying parks at 700 where the sellers think they're at market.
Right.
So you just start to triangulate deals,
Sure. And let's talk about your team structure for a minute. So you probably have a manager in every park. Is that correct?
Technically we have a person and a body for every park, but we've drifted from that because we're so regionally hubbed. Yep. We have a sales team that roams, quality control that runs around with like the app and the phone and sending pictures and text blasts for, stuff, junk on their front porches. They also coordinate home sets and rentals. And then we have managers that are more like regionals. So they oversee all that. And what we found is our really great property specific managers could manage really good up to like 4 or 5 properties. So then we brought more of like admin and this quality control people in to fill in the gap because they were really the managers that we elevated to regionals. They really understood the rent manager and the collections and the bill pay functions to where we didn't want to train everybody to be doing the same thing. So we now have a completely different structure than when we started.
And like, what is the future? I mean, you're at 25 parks, you got a team, you got a focus thing. Obviously your program's working well. You've been around 15 years, grown from 0 to 25. So what are you doing next? Like how big are you trying to grow? What's the plan?
So we're one of the only private capital raisers left. I feel like a lot of guys have jumped into the institutionally backed, more of a GP function, general partner function with, big equity. And so I actually hired a guy and brought him on from BlackRock Real Estate Equity, and he's raising capital on our behalf. Brought him into our promote structure, our GP, and I
Sure.
used to raise money, and now he's way better at it and kicking butt. And so we're at 2,500 units, kind of always in flux, a couple hundred if we're selling and buying, and where our goal is to get to 5,000 units in 5 years, to raise at least like 50 million of fresh equity a year. We're doing about that 30 to 50, I'd say, last couple. And then it's just finding good deals. So the big limiter as of right now, and it's always been this yin and yang, is getting deals that are good quality to kind of fill that allocation and how much we want to grow. But honestly, we bought 350 units in the last 8 months, and then we got another 230 in contract. And so if we can grow at a rough 400 to 500 units a year, we'll hit our goal in 5 years. And then we're also selling some of our smaller assets that we just don't love and see the long-term growth as bright as maybe moving. We do 1031 exchanges, so we'll trim the portfolio. I want all of our long-term, I'd like all of our properties to be in the agency buckets and non-recourse. So that's kind of, we're headed. We raise capital old school. We don't do funds. We may do in the future, but we just do single asset LLCs, and we raise the capital while we're in escrow.
Okay, so you're not doing a Reg D 506 structure, then you're just doing a free standalone property. Is that correct?
It's 506B, so it's just private accredited.
Yeah, right. Okay, and are you going to expand up into other states? Are you going to stick with Arizona and Texas, or are you going to focus on the Southwest or the Midwest, or what's the plan?
So from here, with my team, I try not to be overly aggressive with our growth pattern. Also, a trick for people and listeners is when you focus really hard in a given market, assuming there's more than one deal, right? You got to have a decent amount of manufactured home communities or mobile home parks in a given area, which you guys have decent data for people to find that. Some of your data was how we long ago, we're like, all right, here's the cities we should focus on because there is enough targets. But once you focus, like I've been being told for 5 to 10 years, like, oh, all the good deals in Arizona are bought up. Well, we just stayed focused. And every time they said that, it just kind of hardened my resolve to continue to focus in Arizona. And then I'd find another deal or two. So then we shifted to DFW, which is kind of the same thing. Everyone's saying that it's going to be really hard to scale there. I agree. Good quality. It's going to be tough. But if you focus there, you become an influence on the market and you'll find deals. So then our next jump is probably Central Florida, because it's kind of taking a beating with the press, let's say, on the storm side. We're going to go into the non-flood, less risk section of Florida, very intentionally into probably the Orlando metro. And then you could bolt on a couple of more metros like Tennessee, Nashville, maybe some of those other metros, South Carolina, North Carolina. But they're kind of spotty with how many deals they have. So probably our next bigger metro is Orlando. And then we'll still build out Texas, though. We'll still go into probably San Antonio, Austin, the whole metro. Same thing with Houston. Houston's it's the one city I just have a hard time with just because of the flood and the hodgepodge zoning. But I'm sure there's deals to be had there. So long term will be for Texas as well.
Okay, and Blake, let's rewind the clock to the earliest of days, right? So, as far as learning what you're doing, you were a boot camp attendee, correct?
Yeah. We came probably 4 or 5 years in. We had a few parks.
Right. Okay. So, but for someone who is just pondering, do I want to get in mobile home parks? I mean, give a few words of encouragement for those who haven't taken any action to break out of the rut and do something. How do you translate? I mean, it's one thing to think about doing something. Like I think about doing things all the time, like think about going to the gym, but clearly I'm not. Okay. So, but I should, and I always have this resolve I will, but for some reason I haven't pulled that one off yet. But how do people get from a thought, a great thought even, to doing something? What are some of your secret tricks to help motivate people?
So the best deals are the simplest. So like our first deal was on septic, and God, did it kick my butt. Providing drinking potable water to people, like you become a water supply. Like there's so much to like the initial learning game of this that my guidance would be go to every event and talk to everybody, even if it makes you uncomfortable. Go run around. You like the fun to be had learning and growing at a bar in a hotel for the MHI, Manufactured Housing Institute, or any of the local, go to the local groups events. That's once a year, probably per state or whatever, for their ownership conventions that they put on. Typically, they're a lot smaller. People are a lot more approachable. Like the Arizona MHCA is amazing. If you're wanting to get into Arizona, I'd say start with a 20 unit asset and a given city. That's the best way just to get in. You could drive all the comps. You can go in there and you can saturate yourself. And then I would buy a deal that's probably 20 units plus in a market that you can afford. That's city water and city sewer. I'd say like that would be like the baseline. And that's probably, could be had for $1 million to $2 million, maybe significantly less if you go to, where rents are $300-$400 still. I'm hearing good things about some of the cities in Louisiana that are growing like crazy, but they're still at $300-$400 rents. But maybe they shouldn't be. They should be $500-$600. So like there's these little nuggets, and you don't ever learn that if you don't go to those events and talk to brokers and talk to people. And there's a huge. I just had a text today. I'm getting a 20 unit as part of the 230 unit portfolio we're buying. It's mainly 2 deals and a 20 unit. And I'm like, one of the brokers, I'm like, what's this worth one off? Like, because I'm contemplating buying it myself or selling it to one of my buddies who needs the write off, whatever. But I'm like, what's this thing worth one off? And he's like, gosh, nobody buys a 20 unit. Like that's going to have a serious kind of impact on the pricing. So if the pricing is $100K a unit in Phoenix today, which is, historically, it's probably crazy for you to hear into the hundreds now. But 100 to 120,000 a unit is what we're paying for parks that are decent in Phoenix now. It's probably 75, 80K. And then he's like, I still don't even know who I'd sell it to. It's going to have to be somebody random getting into the space. So if you're starting out, there's actually this really great sweet market from 20 to 50 units, even in big metros. And then if you buy a few of them together in the same market, you can get the scale benefit on an exit. So I would say that would be a cool nugget to start. Buy under $1 million, 20 unit, maybe a 30 unit, 40 unit as you go. There's a huge need. We're doing like everyone should be raising money. I know you guys raised a bunch of money in the day. There's a sudden fear in the air right now to raise private capital. And I think so it's a good time to be to boot up your understanding of how to raise money and learn and do it, because it really, people are looking for these deals and they don't want to do it. Like all the people that invest with us do not want to operate mobile home parks. So buy one and try it. It's not rocket science. It's just a skill set that you have to learn. You can't just show up and know everything. You just have to saturate yourself and go from there.
Right. And like if someone's watching this and they and your story resonates with them and they have any questions for you about your early experiences or anything else, how's a good way to reach Blake Comfort today?
So I just launched I'm making a big press move. So you can go to blakewcomfort.com. Comfortcapital.com is our investor interface. And then I now have a podcast called The Cash Flow Quest. So if you type in my name, it should triangulate The Cash Flow Quest. YouTube stuff for my personal name. I've actually told my origin story now, and it's a pretty good edit down to like 15 minutes of my origin story. And then it's from there, you can kind of click around on anything in the descriptions. But Comfort Communities is our management company, and that's where you can kind of click around on where all of our parks are, look at pictures, all that stuff. It's fun to look back on and think through your boot camp and the original reason why we got so excited about the space. So yeah, I appreciate you having me on, Frank. Good to see you.
Yeah, well, Blake, again, it's a testament to how nice park owners are that people will come on, just talk about the industry, because there's a lot of sectors of real estate that no one will share information on anything, because they view everyone as a competitor and an enemy, and we're like about the only niche of the real estate game today that people still can be nice and open about it. I mean, I don't look at you as a competitor. You don't look at me as a competitor. I look at more like everyone's just kind of in this big, fellowship of park owners, because there's so many parks out there. If you're really trying to do it, we're not all beating each other to death on them. It's fun talking to park owners, and it's refreshing that you can hear people's perspectives with honesty, without having to pay for it, right? I mean, that's what makes this industry magical. Moms and pops are lots of fun. They'll give you a million stories of how things work. Sometimes the stories are a little off. Sometimes the way they were running things, not really maybe up to speed with all the legal restrictions on stuff. And nevertheless, they're always very friendly. Like, I've never, in my entire career of 30 years, I've only ever met just maybe 2 nasty park owners. I mean, everyone's always very, very nice. I mean, so nice. You could call up someone we bought a park from, and oh my God, I run out of gas. And they just bring you gas. They change your tire. Just the nicest people ever. And that's what makes the thing fun. And that's why we like to do these interviews, because just everyone's nice. You're a nice guy. I mean, it's a fun business, because a lot of business is all about the people, and you don't really find nice, fun people really anymore in anything, right? I mean, it's very rare. I mean, you maybe a few volunteer organizations you can, but most everybody's out to cut each other's throat. And in our industry, we're really just not. There's so many parks, out there.
There's tons of deals. There's plenty of deals to be had, and yeah, and honestly, it's like once you get decent at something, you want to share how anything that's fun. So like all of the guys that I even look up to that are significantly bigger, like yourself, if I call them, they'll be like, oh, you should talk to this guy. This is what we're using for our website integrations, whatever it is. Everyone's really willing to help out and steer you in the right direction. There's no schemy stickiness, and the events are actually really fun. And it's not a sea of blue suits. It's like, it's a fun group. I agree with you.
Totally agree. Well, Blake, we appreciate you taking the time to be here, taking some time out of your busy day. And again, if someone has any questions for Blake, feel free to reach out to him. Of course, we're always here at mhu.com to always answer all of our questions on the science of the industry. So again, Blake, thanks for being here, and we will talk to everyone again soon.
Thanks, Frank. Good to see you.
Thanks, Blake.
Thanks for having me. See ya.